Now, let's talk for a few minutes about the million-dollar question that always bothers everybody, which is what about the oral Torah?
How come it didn't change after 5,000?
Good, right? Now, by the way, before we do that, look at the last page. It's actually, for some reason, got printed in this packet twice. It's the second and the fourth page, right? This is one of my favorite things in the world, right? This, take a look. Who's number one?
God gave the Torah.
Good. Number one is Hashem, right? Hashem gave the Torah to Moshe, right? Who's number three? Joshua. What was the relationship between Moshe and Joshua? Good. Joshua was Moshe's prime student. So Moshe received the Torah from Hashem, and then Moshe taught the Torah to lots of people, and the prime person he taught it to was Joshua, right? Joshua passed it down to Pinchas. We just read about him in the Torah, right? Pinchas passed it down to Eli. Eli passed it down to Shmuel, right? Cut to number 131, Rabbi Shmuel Rozovsky, right? Rabbi Shmuel Rozovsky was my rabbi's rabbi, right? Yeah. Which means that anything that my rabbi learned from him, and then I learned from my rabbi, if I would teach it to you, right, this room would be 133 and 134, right, on this list, right? And there are no breaks here. You can see the years, right? Everything, this is a line going all the way from the giving of Torah Mount Sinai to us. The truth is there are actually probably too many names on here, because if you look between like number 58, right, and number 94, right, that only covers 230 years. That's an awful lot of generations for 200 years. Those are names of teachers and students, but there was some overlap, right? So we have maybe too many names here, but there are no gaps. So it's probably even fewer than 134 generations, right? But this is teacher to student, how the Torah has been passed down till this very room where we're standing and talking about the Torah, right? Now, that's all very nice, except that, right, you're going to ask, well, wait a second. Let's say all of this is true, right? These people really existed, which we have evidence that all of them really existed, right? But who says that the Torah that Moshe taught to Joshua was the same Torah that Joshua taught to Pinchas, right? We've all played the game telephone, right? Or they call it Chinese whispers in England, I think, right? And where I whisper, the brown cat jumped over the yellow bucket and landed on the red truck, right? And it goes around the room until what comes back to me is the pink elephant fell off the green cliff into the yellow sea, right? And everybody starts laughing and says that was so funny, right? So isn't that what happened here? So if it is, then we're all in the wrong place, right? Because that means that all the oral Torah we have today is not authentic, right? So I'll tell you about an amazing experiment that a friend of mine did. This was at an NCSY convention. NCSY is a youth group, right, for high school students. So he took two groups, right? It was a controlled experiment. 25 people in each group, 25 high school students from around America, right? And he said, with one group, he did that game, right? And he said something to person one passes to person two, 2 to 3, 4 to, all the way to 25. Person 25 said it, and it sounded nothing like what person number one said, right? And everybody started laughing and said, see, that's exactly how the oral Torah went. Everything we have today is ridiculous because it's all just, you know, a game of Chinese whispers, a game of broken telephone, right? But then he did another experiment. He took another 25 people, and he said, okay, guys, if you get this right, I'm going to throw you a pizza and ice cream party. Now, for high school students, that's about the coolest thing you could ever have, right? So they all got very excited, right? Then he said, here are the rules. I'm going to say something to person number one. They say to 2, to 3, to 4, to 5, to 6, all the way to 25. If you get it 100% right, so then you'll get the pizza and ice cream party. So they all groaned and said, there's no way we can do it. We know this game, right? So he said, wait, let me tell you the rules. Rule number one is that when I say this sentence to person number one, I'm not going to say it right here. We're going to go into a separate room, and I'm going to say it over to person number one. And person number one and I can spend as long as we want in that room, but one thing is clear, we cannot come out of that room. I will not let person number one pass it on to person number two unless I am comfortable that person number one has become an expert in it, right? So we go into another room, and I say, the brown cat jumped over the whatever it was, right? And then they repeat it back to me, and they make a little mistake. And I say, no, try it again. And I say it and test them on it. Then I take a break of 10 minutes and distract them with something else, and then I tell them to do it again. And then I make them do it while they're running around the room. Right? This is how, right? People, I think actors memorize their lines this way. Right? And keep doing it and doing it and doing it until I'm confident. I test them 10 times in a row, say it backwards, start in the middle, do all kinds of things. I'm confident. You've really got this. Right? Go ahead. You now pass on to person number 2. But I'm going to leave the room. Person number 2 come in. Right? And then you will train person number 2, and person number 2 cannot give over to person number 3 until you have authorized them. Right? Now, by the way, when person number 1 does say it over to person number 2, right, in the official moment, I am going to be watching, and I have the opportunity to correct if I see that person number 1 is getting it wrong. And same when person number 2 is passing it to person number 3, person number 1 can watch and correct if anything's going wrong. Right? So when they did it that way, it took a long time, but guess what happened? Of course, they got it perfectly, right? What's the difference between this and the game of telephone? There are 2 differences. Number 1, in the game of telephone, I don't care if we get it wrong. In fact, the more wrong I get it, the funnier it's going to be, right? This we actually care about, and just like those high school kids cared about the pizza and the ice cream, right? But number 2 is that not just anybody can pass it on, and you're not passing it on something you heard once, right? You're passing on something that you learned and studied and got tested on and until somebody said, okay, you are now qualified to go teach this. And difference number 3 is that the person who told you is going to be listening when you say it to the next person. Right? That's why this worked with that group. Now let's think about how oral Torah gets passed on. Let's say, I would say to you right now, everybody, I want you to know there's a common misconception. People think that pork is not kosher. But in fact, pork is kosher. Right? Imagine I would say that to you right now. And you'd all say, really? And I say, yeah, don't worry. I'm a student of this rabbi, and, don't worry about it. You've now heard from me. I'm an Orthodox rabbi. Pork is kosher. So you say, wow, that's amazing. I never knew that. And you walk out of this room, and everybody says, hey, let's go out for pork sandwiches. So you come back, and you get, big ham sandwiches, and you're all sitting in the hallway here eating your ham sandwiches. And one of the teachers walks by and says, excuse me, what are you doing? And you say, oh, we're eating our ham sandwiches. And they say, listen, we try to be non-judgmental here at Neve, but maybe you could go sit outside and eat that, right? So you say, why? It's kosher. So the rabbi says, wow, these are real beginners. They don't know that pork isn't kosher. No problem. I'll explain it to you. You see, pork isn't kosher. And they say, no. A rabbi told us we could eat this. So he says, oh, yeah, which rabbi? So you say, Rabbi Lynn. So then you show up on Sunday and you say, hey, where'd Rabbi Lynn go? Right? Because that would be the end of me ever being authorized to teach anybody. And my name would get all over the Jewish world. Don't ever let this person in. He's saying things that are not part of our tradition. Right? So that is everybody else listening. Right? I couldn't just show up and start teaching. Eventually, first somebody had to say, okay, we've trained you, we've taught you everything you need to know, now you can go teach. And we want you to know if we start hearing weird things that we never taught you, right? So this power can be revoked, right? So that's how oral Torah gets passed on. It's not one person who heard something once trying to repeat it. It's somebody who became an expert in it, passing it on, amongst a whole generation of other experts who are all also passing things on, and the previous generation is there to watch it all happen, right? And they really care about the results, right? If somebody comes and asks me a question, Rabbi, does this line in the Torah mean this or that, right? So I care what the Torah says. I care about how Torah gets passed on to the next generation. I would think long and hard about that question. If I didn't know the answer, I would say, I don't know, right? Because I really care about the results, right? So when all of that happens, it is very possible for things to get passed down perfectly, right, from generation to generation. And so that's how all of this has happened. Okay, we will talk about that eventually the oral Torah did become written down, right? And we'll talk about how that happened and where we can find it today. But it started orally, and at this point it was teacher passing it to student, which means one generation passing it on to the next generation. Okay? Any questions? Thoughts? Pork's not kosher, just in case you missed that part. Right? Yeah? Okay, good. We'll continue next time. My pleasure.